On which mountain did Jesus preach his famous Sermon on the Mount? Mount of Olives, Mount Sinai. Mount of Olives. The Sermon on the Mount was given on the Mount of Olives, according to Matthew, chapter 5, verse 7. What animal guided the three wise men to Jesus? Camel. Star. Star. The star guided the three wise men to where Jesus was, according to Matthew, chapter 2, verse 9. How old was Jesus when he began his ministry? 20 years, 30 years. 30 years. Jesus began his ministry at age 30, as mentioned in Luke chapter 3, verse 23. Who baptized Jesus in the Jordan River? John the Baptist. Peter. John the Baptist. John the Baptist baptized Jesus, as narrated in Matthew chapter 3, verse 13 to 17. True or false? Jesus turned water into wine at a wedding in Cana. True. According to John, chapter 2, verse 1 to 11, Jesus performed this miracle at a wedding in Cana. Who betrayed Jesus for 30 silver coins? Judas Iscariot. Simon Peter. Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus, as described in Matthew, chapter 26, verse 14 to 16. In what city was Jesus born? City of Bethlehem or city of Nazareth? Bethlehem, because according to the Bible, in Luke, chapter 2, verse 4 to 7, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Who denied Jesus 3 times before he crowed? Simon Peter, Andrew. Simon Peter. Simon Peter denied Jesus 3 times, just as Jesus predicted in Matthew, chapter 26, verse 34. Which apostle doubted the resurrection of Jesus until he saw it with his own eyes? Thomas, John. Thomas doubted the resurrection until he saw Jesus, according to John, chapter 20, verse 24 to 29. True or false? Jesus walked on water. True. In Matthew, chapter 14, verse 22 to 33, it is narrated how Jesus walked on water. Which leper returned to give thanks to Jesus after being healed? A Samaritan. A Pharisee. A Samaritan. In Luke, chapter 17, verses 11 to 19, the story is told of the Samaritan leper who returned to thank Jesus. Which of Jesus' disciples sank while trying to walk on water? Peter. Juan. Peter. Peter sank when he hesitated while walking on water, according to Matthew, chapter 14, verse 28 to 31. Which of the Gospels does not contain parables? Matthew. Juan. Juan. Unlike Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the Gospel of Juan does not contain parables. Who said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life"? Jesus. Juan the Baptist. Jesus. Jesus said these words in John chapter 14, verse 6. What was Jesus' first recorded miracle? Convert water into wine. Heal a blind man. Convert water into wine. Jesus' first recorded miracle was at a wedding in Cana, where he turned water into wine, as recounted in John, chapter 2, verse 1 to 11. At what age was Jesus presented in the temple in Jerusalem? 12 years. 30 years. 12 years. Jesus was presented in the temple when he was 12 years old, according to Luke, chapter 2, verse 41 to 52. Which prophet predicted the arrival of John the Baptist as the precursor of Jesus? Isaiah, Jeremiah. Isaiah prophesied about the coming of Juan the Baptist in Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 3. True or false? Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. True. Jesus raised Lazarus according to John, chapter 11, verse 1 to 44. Which of the apostles was known as the beloved disciple? To Juan. Peter. Juan. The apostle Juan was known as the beloved disciple, as mentioned in John, chapter 13, verse 23. Who washed Jesus' feet with his tears and dried them with his hair? Mary Magdalene, the sinful woman. Mary Magdalene. A Mary Magdalene washed Jesus' feet with her tears and dried them with her hair, according to Luke, chapter 7, verses 36 to 50. How many loaves and fish did Jesus multiply to feed a crowd? 5 loaves and 2 fish. 7 loaves and 3 fish. 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus multiplied 5 loaves and 2 fish to feed a multitude, as recounted in Matthew, chapter 14, verse 13 to 21. What parable does Jesus tell about a prodigal son? The parable of the sower. The parable of the prodigal son. The parable of the prodigal son. Jesus told the parable of the prodigal son in Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 to 32. How many days did Jesus spend in the desert being tempted by Satan? 40 days. 7 days. 40 days. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert being tempted by Satan, as recounted in Matthew, chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. True or false, Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem. True. Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem, as recounted in the Gospels. What object did Jesus use to clean the feet of his disciples during the Last Supper? A towel, a bowl of water. A towel. Jesus used a towel to clean the feet of his disciples, as described in John, chapter 13, verse 1 to 17. Which apostle was known as the apostle of the Gentiles? To Pablo. Peter. Pablo. Pablo was known as the apostle to the Gentiles because of his extensive missionary work among non-Jews. Which disciple was known as the one who betrayed Jesus? Judas Iscariot, Simon Peter. Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot is known for betraying Jesus as narrated in the Gospels. True or false, Jesus was tempted by Satan in the desert. True. Jesus was tempted by Satan in the desert, as recounted in Matthew, chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. What woman was caught in adultery and brought before Jesus to be judged? The Samaritan woman. The adulterous woman. The adulterous woman. An adulterous woman was brought before Jesus to be judged, as recounted in John, chapter 8, verses 1 to 11. Which of the apostles was known as the Rock? To Pedro, Juan. Peter. Peter was known as the Rock, Cephas in Aramaic, as mentioned in Matthew, chapter 16, verse 18. Which of the Gospels begins with the genealogy of Jesus? Matthew frames. Matthew. The Gospel of Matthew begins with the genealogy of Jesus. In Matthew, chapter 1, verse 1 to 17. Who cut off the ear of one of the high priest's servants when Jesus was arrested? Simon Peter. Judas Iscariot. Simon Peter. Simon Peter cut off the ear of the high priest's servant, as recounted in John, chapter 18, verse 10. True or false, Jesus rose from the dead 3 days after his crucifixion. True. Jesus was resurrected 3 days after his crucifixion, according to the Gospels. What city is known as the birthplace of Jesus? Bethlehem. Nazareth. Bethlehem. Bethlehem is known as the birthplace of Jesus, according to Matthew, chapter 2, verse 1. Which disciple of Jesus was known as the disciple whom Jesus loved? To Juan. Andrew. Juan. Juan is known as the disciple whom Jesus loved, as mentioned in Juan, chapter 13, verse 23.